find somebody that can truly do that. We need our James Earl Jones before he passes away, or somebody like that. We need.
You want Darth Vader as a Unitarian?
Oh yeah,
is that a good idea?
They already think we're the bad guys. We might as well, own it.
Welcome to the Unitarian Christian Alliance podcast, episode 69. He gets us because he's one of us. I'm Mark Cain. Today is our second roundtable, which is a more informal and timely discussion about what's going on now, in early 2023. What is the He Gets Us campaign, and how does it intersect with our efforts here? What would sincere Bible students who believe the only true God is the Father and not the Trinity, what would they have to say about this deep-pocket Jesus public relations campaign? That's what the four of us talk about today. I think you'll appreciate this behind-the-scenes discussion of how we participated in this 2023 phenomenon. Probably the most important part, however, is why Jesus being one of us matters. In that regard, this episode is as timeless as any. The He's One of Us effort was a product of the UCA board members, but I didn't want to just talk to them today. This podcast is about meeting new people. I put out the call on the UCA Facebook group and my UCA podcast email newsletter groveling for someone. Okay, well, it wasn't groveling. It was merely pleading. I was looking for someone who had followed along with the He Gets Us campaign, who could join us. Tim Woodard accepted the call, and I'm pleased that today you can make his acquaintance. Tim Woodard, Brandon Duke, and Dale Tuggy. It's good to have you here, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Really good to be here.
Brandon and Dale we both kind of know. Tim, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, guys. Tim Woodard. This last UCA conference was the first time that I'd got to meet many of you, and what an awesome time it was. My wife and I and my youngest son and his wife were there. So we've actually been in the Unitarian universe for quite some time. We were both raised, my wife and I, in a Unitarian faith. And a few years ago, we kind of moved on from the group we had been participating with. But over the last couple years, it's been an effort on our part to connect with other folks in the community. And the UCA was just instrumental in that. And we're very, very thankful to be involved.
So I guess, first of all, do we need to explain what the He Gets Us campaign is? Are there people who don't know yet?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably, yeah, especially people that didn't watch the Super Bowl.
I know.
Oh, are there any such people?
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
So I'm a big NFL fan, and while I was watching the playoff games, I noticed there were these little black and white Jesus advertisements. I'm like, what is this? Is this the Mormons or something? What's going on? And they seem to have a nice message about a relatable human Jesus. Well, I believe in a relatable human Jesus, so I was pretty interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I do some Googling and find out that there's this big bunch of big money donors, seemingly some evangelical Americans, and they have this He Gets Us campaign where they're trying to, I guess, rehabilitate the reputation of Jesus in the general American audience.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're trying to separate Jesus from any connotations with, conservative politics or culture war things or Trump voters. Naturally, since they were propounding a human and relatable Jesus, I wanted to know, do these guys also think that Jesus is God? And I looked at their website and it says, yeah, of course we believe he's fully God and fully man. It was like half of one sentence.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, I like what you're doing. I want Jesus to have an awesome reputation, and I want people to consider him relatable and take him seriously. But, you're trying to have the fruits of a human Jesus without paying any of the costs. You're just assuming that you can have small c Catholic tradition and also have a human Jesus, and I don't think you really can.
Yeah. Brandon?
So I get this phone call.
Yeah.
And Dale starts describing this sort of guerrilla marketing campaign, which I get pretty excited about because I like anytime we can start spreading the message with, the resources we have. And he's like, what if we created some of our own response content to help, draw out the implications of what orthodoxy means for what these guys are saying, right? If they want to say, that Jesus is relatable, but they also want to say, oh, of course he's still fully God. Well, how's that work? And if anybody has the real version of a relatable Jesus, it's Unitarians, right? It seems like a great opportunity for us to draw that line and really make people think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, well, let's see if we can come up with some scripts and put a few videos together. And what if maybe also we used YouTube's advertising to put our videos right in the stream right after these big high dollar ads? Maybe we can follow along on their coattails a bit.
Now, when you were thinking of like, well, let's make our own scripts, you also decided to model the appearance of these things.
My favorite part of it, other than just the style, is Dale did these great thumbnails that look very much in the same style. So if you're scrolling past this video with 10 million views from a Super Bowl ad, right next to it is a UCA video that might easily be another one of those from that same ad campaign. The idea was to get the most bang for our buck that we could and get people to unintentionally listen to some of our content, along with this $1 billion ad campaign.
All right, Tim, this was brewing. You had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, from my perspective, this comes out of nowhere. And looking back, at YouTube and seeing like, oh my gosh, there's like over 20,000 people have seen this video. It's quite incredible. So first off, my question was like, how in the heck did you get 20,000 people to watch this video? But I think you just answered that question, which is really great. I love it.
Yeah, we definitely also spent some money. I mean, whenever you want a video to show up in YouTube, other than just what the algorithm does, you can pay a penny or two a view to get that put in people's streams. So there's a snowball effect that happens too, where the more views a video gets, the more the algorithm recommends it, and you can try to grow that snowball. People help us with that in lots of ways. Everybody that shares it, they help that snowball grow. Everybody that watches it accidentally helps the snowball grow. Every angry Trinitarian that comments on the video helps the snowball grow. So all of that activity and that engagement, if there's one thing that the Unitarian movement really has a problem with, it's brand recognition. Nobody knows what we are and what we stand for. And so at this point, if anytime someone just comes in contact with Unitarian thinking, even if they're confused about it, even if they at first mix us up with UUs, all of that's good. And even angry Trinitarian responses are great because they help someone else say, well, why is this person so angry? And then a gentle Unitarian comes along and responds with a verse and with kindness. And all of a sudden, the audience is saying, these people don't seem that bad. They seem like they're Bible believing. They seem like they're sincere.
Yeah. Something that some folks may not understand is having the algorithms of YouTube work in our favor. Maybe explain what that means, because people don't maybe realize what is actually happening when things pop up on the side of their video, like, hey, you might be interested in this. That's the algorithm, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, YouTube makes money when people keep watching videos. So their number one objective is to feed you the next video that tastes so yummy to you. They've got to train the computers to make the best guess.
Heresy.
That's right.
Fresh, steaming, hot, buttery, chocolatey heresy.
The YouTube algorithm knows that if a video has the phrase two natures in it, that it had better recommend it to me because I am going to watch it.
You're a glutton for punishment, man.
There's nothing I love better than somebody sanctimoniously explaining how this incoherent thing makes so much sense. But, the algorithm's trying to figure it out. So the more that there's activity around a video, there's engagement with it, the more that it gets recommended in your list of recommended videos. I mean, I can give you an example, some metrics from the UCA YouTube channel. We see kind of a native background viewership level where people are Googling, say, the term Unitarian or two natures or the Trinity or something. And YouTube, for every person that Googles, let's say, the Trinity, it's giving some tiny sliver of those searches a UCA video. And obviously what we'd like is for that to go from some tiny percent to some very large percent. Everybody that searches problem with the Trinity, they get a UCA video or some other Unitarian video, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to get there, you have to have enough engagement that the algorithm says, oh yeah, people are going to want to watch this. It figures out what people want to watch in the future by what they've watched in the past. And so there is this kind of snowball effect that you try to create with engagement. And so we spend some money to get that kind of engagement. And then we work as hard as we can to get the most bang for the buck. So if you're a UCA donor, thank you very much. We've been very grateful for people that responded to the recent funding drive at the end of 2022. People have been very generous, and we're trying to do a good job of using those resources to really make a difference and spread the Unitarian message.
Dale.
Yeah, and while we tried to imitate the simple aesthetic, the look of their videos, and even kind of the sound, we realized that our audience was maybe a little bit different. I think they were trying to appeal to just the general secular public who haven't thought very much about Jesus. And we're appealing a little bit to them, but maybe more so to just Bible-oriented Christians who haven't really thought about this whole two natures business, or Jesus being true God from true God, like the Creed says, and just trying to, drive them back to their Bibles and to reconsider this and be good Protestants and be willing to roll things farther back than they had previously. So our videos are more argumentative. Their videos are just very emotive. They're very simple. I mean, some of them are 15 seconds. I wasn't a big fan of that one in the Super Bowl that just had hugging toddlers. I didn't really feel like that was the best way to encapsulate like Jesus and his message. But I did like the one about how he loves the people that we hate, like our political enemies and culture war enemies and things like that.
Mm.
So ours are more kind of, hey, look, guys, he says he's a man who's empowered by God. Shouldn't think he's God. He's not all-knowing, all-powerful, immortal, and so on.
If I was to play one right now,
I think my favorite might be the honest Jesus. It kind of makes the argument that, hey, look, if this guy was immortal and all-knowing and had all authority in himself, then he was really very misleading if he was that.
Why don't we just play that one and then people can hear it? How long is that one? Is that really long?
It's 151.
Oh, great. Okay.
For the record, the professor showed incredible discipline with the length of his videos. Some of them are less than a minute, and I was the one that couldn't help it and did a 4.5-minute video that's supposed to be a little 30-second snippet.
So, right.
It's all that Twitter training.
Yeah.
According to centuries of post-biblical speculations, the man Jesus is somehow also fully divine. That is, divine in the way the one God is. But if that's so, then Jesus, as divine, would know everything, would have unlimited power, would never need to get authority from anyone else, and would be immune to death. But are we going to believe Jesus, or these later speculations about him? Because Jesus told us there was something he didn't know, something which God did know. We also read that it was God who did the miracles through Jesus. And Jesus gets his authority to forgive and judge from God. Finally, Jesus himself predicted his own sacrificial death. Dare we say that Jesus, being divine, was pretending to be mortal? Pretending to be in need of power and authority from God? And pretending to be limited in knowledge? Surely not. Let's trust the honest Jesus.
That's probably my favorite out of them, but they're all good.
Yeah.
The longest one is almost 4 minutes long. This is one that Brandon did. And my favorite moment is where you see this image of like a ninja and a guy trying to open a pickle jar. And Brandon makes the argument, suppose that you suddenly became fully divine, then, maybe part of you would be limited in power and limited knowledge and so on, but you'd still have that fully divine component. And, you wouldn't at all be in the same situation that we're in. You'd have just gotten a massive upgrade.
Yeah, and that goes back to your honest Jesus point. ultimately he's not being honest with everyone when he's sleeping and yet also holding, creation in existence at the same time, or he's also asking questions and yet is omniscient. He's not being forthright with the people around him. And so you can either have your divine Jesus that's faking it, or you can have an honest one who's just a man, and you got to pick.
Tim?
One thing I thought was really curious was the common reaction among Christians to just the HeGetsUs campaign. So many people were kind of upset that their elevated Jesus was being brought down to any sort of human representation, which I think is pretty shocking if you're going to make the claim that he's 100% man. Even if you have a tick and you have to then remind them or yourself that he's 100% God too, why is it so offensive to even make a point that draws on that thread of him being a man?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Hey, Mark, it might be worth mentioning, I've seen pushback from both sides of the political spectrum. I've seen people from the right say these are terrible, woke politics videos.
It's unfair.
Yeah, totally unfair. Mm-hmm. And then I've seen people from the left call them fascist. So I guess I would make 2 points about this. One is we had no interest in the politics. We were interested in the theological question. Mm-hmm. What kind of Jesus would get us? Because we think, according to Hebrews and other places in the Bible, he's explicitly said to get us. It seemed like we have really, really sound New Testament biblical footing to push back on this, to say they're right to drive the point that he gets us, but they don't have the legs to stand on, the theological basis for having an authentic Jesus that gets us.
Well, Brandon, to your point, Kegan had written something, and I loved it, and I want to read it out loud here. This is Kegan Chandler. He's also on the board. He writes, "What's interesting to me is the fact that people feel the need to make Jesus relatable at all. It seems obvious that this impulse is a byproduct of the doctrine of the deity of Christ. If people all around the world already believe Christians think Jesus was human, just like us in every way, it seems foolish for Christians to spend so much energy and money trying to get people to think so. But I think the truth is that both the world and the HeGetsUs campaign sense that the Jesus of Orthodoxy is fundamentally unrelatable, and the masses will not be attracted to this sort of thing. The need to make Jesus appear as human as possible is owed to the fact that the world presently thinks he doesn't get us, and this is due to centuries of worldwide Jesus is Godism." Thank you, Kegan.
Yeah, that's very well said. I mean, this is the Docetism, every Christmas, the Baptist pastor will break out this omniscient baby in the manger. Well, he doesn't look very omniscient, but he really is, And on the face of it, Jesus is tempted, say in Luke chapter 4. A lot of Trinitarians like, well, look, you can't tempt God. So there was something going on there, but it wasn't real temptation. I've had people tell me Jesus didn't really die, that he just sloughed off the body or the human nature and just kept right on trucking, being alive. So yeah, you just keep subtracting elements of the human condition out of the picture, and then you basically have an Avatar kind of situation or God in disguise, and that's not the New Testament,
Yeah. Let's talk about then actually how it went down. Like, these videos we're posting, people were catching them, and the comments started flying. I mean, what were some of your reactions to what you saw?
My favorite Super Bowl ever.
Nice.
No, it's a blast, right? We got to watch. I guess I have a unique seat because I get the YouTube stats. Mm-hmm. Dale had done yeoman's work punching out a bunch of these before Sunday actually rolled around. And I got to watch the numbers increase and watched spikes, in the YouTube channel as the commercials hit, and people started Googling and finding, the actual ads, but then accidentally stumbling on ours too. It was a lot of fun. And then, to see people start commenting on the YouTube comments, and it was the traditional fare. We always know we're getting a good sample of sort of American evangelicals when we get, we're called heretics and unbelievers and all that good stuff. But then there's always a few scattered in there, the comments saying, this is interesting. I hadn't really thought about that before. And Yeah, made my Sunday. It was fun.
Brandon, haven't you read John 1:1?
Oh, yeah. There's always some guy that copies and pastes from some notepad document he has somewhere 50 proof texts he's got for the Trinity, right? And they're all bad. And
It's a cut and paste jouster.
that's right.
Did you have to police the comments?
Oh, yeah.
Or was it civil?
Well, it's never civil. But
The apologetics bro crowd is not a civil crowd. It's like,
no.
it's a hive of scum and villainy.
How do you really feel, though, dude?
The type of person that comments to say you're going to hell and, they don't engage with the argument at all. That's the worst. The next worst is the person that just copies and pastes their proof text and runs.
Drive by.
That's right. That's right. Right. But then there's the person that's like that they're worried for you, They're like, "Oh no, you're going to go to hell, so here, let me try and help you." And that's the person that I really like. Like, these are the people that they're sincere and that they're engaging with the ideas. And so, yeah, my response is to try to respond to every last comment. I figured that's what I can do. And every time someone gets into a long discussion, and finally they're like, "Well, I'm just done with you. I want to put at the end of the 10 comment thread, thank you very much for helping promote our video to the rest of YouTube. Been a great conversation."
Shh, don't tell them that it helps.
Well, I think they're not worried about no platforming us, to be honest. I don't think they're worried about that strategy. I think they got us handled.
No platforming would be what? Just completely ignoring us?
Yep, absolutely. Same way that a lot of academics do to Dale's work. They just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to engage with it. It's too hard. It's too scary.
Yeah.
Get you in trouble.
I wonder if that's easier in academia, whereas in the rest of the world, maybe there's less discipline about what people engage with in social media. They just knee-jerk, I've got to respond.
Yeah. One of the problems that I really have about the Trinity is it creates a flock of people who feel obligated to argue for and defend something that they themselves don't understand, but they are convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that they have to just condemn us. They just have to. And then they say something and we ask a question like, well, I'm not going to engage with your questions because I just know you're crazy. And they don't. It's just so sad because you want to see a discussion that goes back and forth and ferrets out like real meaty, important thoughts. And what you get is a one-sided conversation where you post a thoughtful response and they just blow it off, just brush it off because they're not, most people can't explain the Trinity. And so they don't. They just condemn us. Tim?
I was just saying, I suppose that's one of the good things about this being on YouTube and the comment threads kind of being there for, in perpetuity. Everyone can objectively see how these discussions unfold. And if we're doing our part in being kind and charitable in our responses and on good faith trying to engage with people that have genuine questions, even if it's not going to have an impact on the person we're talking to, untold, thousands are going to see that. So I think from that perspective, it's worth our time. Even if our 1 cent that went to that person's view didn't bear fruit directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to give an idea of the scale of that too, I mean, we had 300,000 views on the YouTube channel lifetime last time I checked. Every one of those is not the same quality, right? Somebody watches a video and they forget about it the next day. But some of those are seeds planted. And my hope with the whole social media effort is that every one of those seeds that's planted pushes some pastor to have to go back and defend it. Ultimately, what you create is the need for the sleeping bear to wake up and respond to the scholarship and the real case that's out there, right? We want the biggest names in sort of Christendom, the names that the average American or the average person has heard of. We want them to be talking about this subject. We want them to have Dale Tuggy's name on their lips. Sorry, Dale, for being the sacrificial lamb. But the more angry apologists can describe this, the more people now have this on their plate to decide for themselves. This kind of guerrilla thing that we're doing, we're trying to punch above our weight as far as, the kind of resources we have. It's trying to wake that bear or wake the dragon, poke the bear, whatever the mixed metaphor is there. Sorry. Because I want to see Dale Tuggy interviewed on Fox News about some Christian denomination that's struggling with this topic at their convention, and, lines at the bottom of news articles that say Arian heresy, air quotes, rears its ugly head in, American evangelicalism. Like, if that's happening, it seems like something good is there. And all of a sudden, when people go buy a 4Views book on the Trinity off the shelf at their bookstore from Amazon or wherever, our view's in there. I think that's how we start moving the dial on this.
Mm-hmm. Dale?
Mark, to go back to your comment about the angry and overconfident and dismissive person who exists in abundance when you bring up the Trinity, when you're in a mainstream, like a dominant mainstream, it tends to breed intellectual laziness. And I remember thinking this when I was a Trinitarian, just like all Christians think this. Like, who are these jokers, like, who would not agree with this? It's kind of like everybody knows this. Had I ever really looked into it? No. But that's what I thought, right?
Yeah.
And so I would have been just dismissive. If I had found out about the Church of God General Conference in 1997, I'd have been like, those must be UUs or something. I would have had no category to put them in. So we're trying to make a category in people's mind, and we go out there and do a lot of arrow and spear catching in the process, especially Brandon. He's like a human pincushion. He keeps on smiling, keeps on talking back. Look, I'll talk forever with somebody on Twitter as long as they're not just hateful and horrible. If it's, I'm afraid for your soul, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And why are you afraid, But people don't even realize that these things are difficult and controversial, or that early Christians weren't Trinitarians, any of them. I went out and got the little paperback book that goes with the HeGetsUs campaign.
Oh.
And it's just little short chapters with snippets from the writings of the devotional writer Max Lucado. And it's very revealing for kind of how American evangelicals think about Jesus. It really comes down to this. Jesus is God himself, and also he's not. And so every other page, or sometimes on the same page, you'll see some comment that implies that Jesus just is God himself, like those are one and the same. And then one paragraph down, there'll be something that clearly presupposes that they're two. And then at the end, they have about 25 pages of scripture references. And if you just look at some of those, yeah, you got God over here and Jesus over here. They're two different ones doing two different things. So just by putting that 25 pages in there, it's like, well, thank you for including the Unitarian material in your HeGetsUs book.
Dale, I think you just need to study the Trinity a little bit more, and then maybe you'd get it.
I love it when people online tell me that I have no idea at all what Trinitarians say.
I was in one discussion, it was suggested to me after I didn't get any real back and forth on the points I was making. Read the New Testament, underline every God, every Father, every Son, and every Spirit, and come back to me when you're done. Like, is that an exegetical method?
I've done that, and they're always different.
Yeah, right. But they just can't imagine that somebody would take a different view. They've only ever been taught one. They've literally only heard one side of the story,
Yeah.
They're like a juror that plugs their ears whenever the defense starts talking, and they listen really close when the prosecution talks. And so it's not that they're stupid or especially dishonest or anything like that. A lot of people just literally have never heard the other side of the case. Like, how could anybody read the Bible and think Jesus is a man and not also God? Well, there's a lot to say there. And we say some of it in these short videos.
Yeah. Regarding Twitter, too, if people aren't following Dale on Twitter, let me recommend it. I joined Twitter for exactly that purpose, and to be a little less old, and because I'm only on Facebook. So now I'm 5 years younger now that I've joined Twitter. But if you get on Twitter, follow Dale. It's fun to watch the discussions. And he's been on a tear here recently with these memes he's put together. If you haven't seen them, they're good. We'll start posting them in the Facebook group too. But he forces people to pick, say, between Jesus was omniscient or Jesus didn't know the time of his return, and the Superman guy's trying to pick from between the two buttons, It's a lot of fun. And it's, as much as people might tease him for having all the words in the 35,000 word article in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. He also knows how to do the tweets and say it in a sentence too. So check it out if you haven't yet.
I'll second that, Brandon. There are two things that I really enjoy is Unitarianism and memes, and to put them together. Oh my goodness.
What is your handle, Dale, so that people could follow you on Twitter?
It's just at Dale Tuggy.
Okay.
At Unitarian Christ is the official UCA one. You should definitely follow that one too.
Okay.
Yeah, Manasseh Israel does a great job with that Twitter account too. He's always stirring the pot as well. So if you're not following those two, you're missing out on the show.
All right. Well, the end result then of this campaign, I mean, it's still technically happening. Anybody who looks for our videos are going to find it. Searching for He Gets Us, these things will pop up here and there. But the overall result now, because of this additional campaign, and how many more views did we get because of the advertising that took place at the time?
A couple 100,000.
Okay. That has changed the status of our content overall.
Yeah, native viewership.
Yeah, the algorithms have shifted some, and we show up more, and the result is more people are watching this.
Yep.
And I would say, like, as a YouTube viewer, if I see a video that's got, thousands of views, it legitimates it more than if it just has a few hundred views. So I think there's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. To speak to that native reach, Mark, that the algorithm's sort of feeding to us now, it's fun for me. Every day I check and see, how many hundreds of people, say 400 or 500 people watch one of the videos. And I'll always know the persons that get hooked because, there's 100 views on this one, 75 views on this one, and then there'll be 25 views for every video. And I know that 25 people went through and watched everything in the channel.
Wow.
And that's what makes me really excited is, I remember when we first started the channel, I'd see a couple of those a day. Somebody got hooked and watched them all. Well, now it's in the scores of people that go through and do that. Mm-hmm. And look, by the time you watch 10 or 20 of those videos, you can have a decent picture of what Unitarianism is. And, you might not agree with it, but at least now it's on your radar. It's this awareness we're talking about. And it's exciting. Look, it's one little piece of what the UCA is doing. In addition to books and real events and real people connecting, it's fun to see something that just didn't exist 6 years ago, hopefully having an impact and, doing it on a shoestring.
Mm-hmm. Tim?
So I have a question about that, Brandon. So like as an outsider, apart from us just maybe contributing to the UCA or watching the videos ourselves, maybe commenting here and there, what are other things that we could maybe do to help expand the reach of this stuff?
Awesome. Here's specific things you can do. Spread the good word. The more you can share on Facebook or whatever social media you use, the videos, that's worth its weight in gold.
Instagram, Twitter.
Yep. Whatever platform you use. If you use TikTok and you want to pull a little clip out of one of the videos, that's great. Let the Chinese government know exactly what Unitarianism is. But you can also create shorts out of YouTube videos. So if there's a presentation that you liked from, let's say, the last conference, and there was a great 60 seconds worth of awesome material, you can click the button at the bottom of the video, then say create a clip, and you can share that. And that shows up in YouTube Shorts for people. Anytime you feel like throwing a comment on a video, even if it's just nice, all that stuff helps the algorithm. So please feel free to comment. And remember that we're trying to win the audience that's not commenting. So when we can respond with grace and love, we start winning the moral high ground.
Yeah, those kind of ambassadors are really valuable. Somebody who can respond with good information and a good Christ-like attitude. That's who's going to help people to think about it.
Yeah.
In many ways, we're similar to a political movement in that it takes a lot of people and a lot of voices all saying the same thing for it to get through the noise and the fog of the information world we live in. You don't have to be Dale Tuggy to get out there and try and help. I'm the proof. You can just be little old me and say, hey, does Two Natures Christology make sense to you? And let it float. And then when people talk with you about it, you're already ahead. And you don't have to win the argument. All you have to do is have it in good faith and with a good attitude, and you're doing that work. So for everyone that contributes to the UCA, we take those contributions very seriously. And the vast majority of those contributions go directly back into the conference and services, the website and all that. We carved out a tiny sliver to try and do this advertising campaign. You know, it doesn't take a mathematical genius to figure out at 1 cent a view how many dollars it takes to get 1 million views. You know, maybe somewhere down the road there's a UCA video that's on a Super Bowl commercial, then the whole of the United States can get upset about one of our videos instead.
Then they would all be mad.
That's right. Everybody can be upset.
Everybody could be upset.
We just need a donor who's a NFL rookie who just got a $50 million 5-year contract and would just like to give us $1 million for the Super Bowl ad.
That's right.
It'll feature the golden, soothing voice of Brandon Duke.
Although today I'm sick, so we need to find somebody that can truly do that. We need our James Earl Jones before he passes away, or somebody like that. We need.
You want Darth Vader as a Unitarian?
Oh yeah,
is that a good idea?
They already think we're the bad guys. We might as well, own it.
Yeah, we don't want to be choking people with our mind.
You don't know the incomprehensibility of the dual natures.
Okay, so not him.
Okay.
So
All right. I just want to reflect on this because, we put a lot of effort into getting this idea out there. And, I still think about the folks who are like, you guys just think all that matters is this doctrine about the one God. No, there's something much bigger and deeper to this. So I just want to ask for maybe reflection from some of you about the bigger picture. Brandon?
There's this great quote from Kegan that I'll send you, Mark. I clipped it out of his speech, or I think it was out of the Q&A from the first UCA conference. And he says something like this.
An older gentleman who told me one time, he said, Kegan, if your theology doesn't make you more like Jesus, get rid of it. And while that's probably a good general rule of thumb, I think that we know a doctrine by its fruits. And I can say that in my own life, recognizing and accepting the genuine humanity of Jesus full stop has made an incredible impact in my own life. And that's, I grew up thinking I could never really be like Jesus, and I'm supposed to be like Jesus, but, he's God. So is he really my example? Well, the Bible says that those who claim to know him are obligated to live the life that he lived. And I find that a Jesus who is human, full stop, he can actually be a genuine example for me. But the God-man who I can scarcely comprehend, I'm not sure what to do with that. And it certainly doesn't compel me to live like he did.
Perfect. Jesus being fully human and not having this divine side that overcomes all obstacles and problems. Now we have this Jesus that actually overcame sin, that actually obeyed the Father, even unto death on a cross. For anyone that is a follower of Jesus, all of a sudden the bar for you has been dramatically raised. The expectations that we have, our self-expectations for what discipleship looks like, should be radically different than the docetic Jesus to whom we can only appeal and never follow.
Amen to that, Brandon. After watching the Because He's One of Us videos, I happened to be reading in 1 John. There's a couple verses that just nail that. In 1 John 2:5, it says, "But whoever keeps his word, in him the love of God has truly been perfected. By this we know that we are in him. The one who says he abides in him ought himself to walk in the same manner as he walked." And how do we do that if he's a God-man?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's Reformation 2.0. It's doctrinal, but it's not purely or merely theoretical. It affects a lot of things. And one of those things is discipleship and whether it really makes sense mentally and emotionally to follow Jesus. Another one is the New Testament doctrine that he's the only intermediary we need between us and God, right? If he's God, then now we feel like we need something else. To be clear about who God is versus who Jesus is, it really affects a lot of things. But that's not to say that you can't be saved if you're confused. But people could be saved before there was Protestantism, but Protestantism in the 1500s did make a lot of things better, a lot of theoretical things and a lot of practical things.
Yeah.
One other thing that I'd add, Mark, the polls say that atheism is growing in the United States. It's growing in Europe. the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, the people that say that they're not affiliated with any Christian organization or identity that they would, self-identify with, that's also growing. And I just have to wonder how many people, I wonder how much influence this conflict has on people. I don't know how many Christians have thought, this Jesus just he's not relatable to me, and I think it's BS, right? I don't know what percentage of those people are saying this Christianity is just, it just doesn't seem plausible. It doesn't seem real. It's full of contradictions and problems, and I'm out. This ad campaign it seems like it's trying to reach that kind of person, the person who's been sort of disenfranchised, who's not interested in Jesus. I just wonder how many of those people are right now, in their mind, they have this sort of Christianity in their left hand that they're balancing against atheism in their right. And what they have in their left hand is poor. It's not a plausible version of Christianity. If, smack me and call me a rationalist, but when you have a Jesus that both knows and doesn't know, both fears and doesn't fear, can do and also can't do, can die and also can't die. Look, those are two bad options. So I think there's maybe an opportunity for Christianity to come roaring back from the kind of skepticism that's present in the society today, with a better version, a better option of Christianity that Unitarianism can offer, that's biblical, it's historical, but it's free of traditional problems, issues that it shouldn't have to carry, that maybe turn people away. And so that's one of my hopes, is that if Unitarianism can grow, it's a way of saving Christianity from the dung heap of history. If people abandon the small c Catholic version of Christianity because it doesn't make sense to them and it doesn't even fit with the documents they're reading, I can't imagine a greater tragedy. And maybe we can be a force to try to help counteract that.
There are a certain number of people, I think, who have a generally positive impression of Jesus, but they're dimly aware that in some sense he's supposed to be God, and they would just say, oh yeah, but I think he's a man. And by that they mean to distance themselves from all this Christian stuff. And so it's interesting if people come along and say, hey, we're Christians. Yeah, he is a man. That's what he said. He's a very special man that you need to understand, and understand his actions and his teachings about God and about himself. So yeah, we hope that it'll help some of those people to reconsider. Maybe they haven't understood as much as they need to about Christianity and about Jesus.
So what's next?
Well, we're kind of waiting to see if the other shoe is going to drop with the HeGetsUs campaign, if they're going to now turn and argue that Jesus is really God or is fully divine. If they do that, we are loaded for bear. There might be another video or two. I think we could have done more to cover Jesus as a hero of faith, which is an important New Testament theme. And it's something that we can relate to, because we have to rely on trust in God just to get through our lives. In the book, they do say a little bit more about Jesus being God, but they still don't want to get into any of the traditional machinery, same nature, divine nature and human nature, Trinity. I don't even think the word Trinity is in the book, actually, in the HeGetsUs book.
Interesting.
So, Mark, we know they still have enormous amounts of money to spend. Like, as I understand it, this is not a campaign that's over with a Super Bowl ad. They're going to have, billboards in cities and radio ads and TV and ongoing. And if you go to their YouTube channel, you can still see they're spending money on ads too. They're not getting all of these millions of views.
To put it mildly.
Not purely organic is what you're saying right now. Much like the Trinity.
That's right. I mean, Mark, when I looked at the number of views that one of those Super Bowl ads had on their YouTube channel that night, it had fewer views than ours did, because I had been using ad money to drive ours. And it looks like they were just letting natural draw drive those views. And one of them it was a couple of thousand views. It was less than ours did. And then you watch over the next couple of days, and all of a sudden it's got 10 million views. I think there's still money driving that. Part of this plan from the very beginning was knowing that and thinking, whatever investment we make in this now, it's going to keep paying dividends every dime that they spend advertising, there's a chance somebody stumbles into our He's One of Us campaign by accident. So hopefully this thing continues to pay dividends and people run into Unitarian ideas for years and years to come while they run their campaigns.
Tim, any last thoughts?
I'm excited to see what the next campaign holds and be the first to like and comment. It's been really fun to watch, honestly. And what I know for myself, what I can get better at doing is trying to engage in the comments section. And, certainly watching it is important, but I think we can all probably step up our game and play a part in supporting the work you guys are doing in drawing attention to this movement. So that's what's next for me.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, guys. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. That was great.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
In March, we have a men's conference in New York, a family event in Indiana, and just added this week, a women's conference in Michigan. April has the Bible conference in Texas, which both I and Kegan from the UCA board will be attending. April also has the Israel tour, though it's getting late and it's possibly full, and a women's conference in New York and another conference in Tennessee. April also just added a Passover celebration in Oregon State. July has a youth event in Indiana and a family event in Oregon. Learn about all these and how you can invite a wider Unitarian Christian community to your event at unitarianchristianalliance.org/events. And now the mailbag. Derrick writes, "Hi, Mark. I started off learning about Islam as I wanted to see if the bad name it got was actually scripturally based or not, which led to watching a lot of content from Christians and ex-Muslims and reading websites and books. I debated Muslims for quite some time. I was debating Muslims with a Trinitarian viewpoint. But then I started watching a street preacher's videos, and I found a website, theonenessofgod.org. It had very good points, and that made me really doubt the Trinitarian view. I joined a church within the last year, which I thought was non-denominational, but found out that even those have their denominations, and I found out it was a Trinitarian church. I've found it hard to even go anymore. I used to go every week, but it's hard when you hear the way they describe God. I really wish there was a church nearby which would help enforce my views and that I'm not the only one who thinks like this. I'm glad I found sources out there like your organization, but it's really too bad that there aren't a lot more YouTube channels and street preachers preaching this viewpoint. Thanks, Derrick." Appreciate the note, Derrick. If you get a chance to attend one of the events that we list, or this upcoming UCA conference, it will likely be quite encouraging. We're also about ready to launch the details for hosting regional UCA conferences, which may help you meet more people as well, if one shows up near you. So, Derrick, I'm glad you wrote. Let's stay in touch as new things develop in your life. Speaking of the UCA conference, we've officially published the call for papers for this year's UCA conference. Again, it will be held in Springfield, Ohio, October 19 through 21. Go to unitarianchristianalliance.org and read the details about the conference and the call for papers. This is likely to be the last year for a while that it'll be in Ohio, as we are looking for people to help make long-term plans for locations and venues in the coming years. Stay tuned for more details about that. Personal recommendations are the most meaningful way to spread the reach of podcasts like this. You've learned of several podcasts here, and you'll continue to hear more. We podcasters pour ourselves into this, whether it be tons of research, writing, planning, coordinating, recording, editing, sound effects, or simply prayerful thinking. It's something that we do for you. In our circles, we aren't doing this to earn money. This is a labor of love and of passion and of a desire to see others learn and discover. How do we podcasters find the energy to keep doing this? Well, here are two key ways. One, we hear from you. And two, we see the downloads inch higher. I probably don't need to explain to you why hearing from you is encouraging. But you may not know that, on average, it's only around 1% or less of any audience that ever connects with the podcaster. That's pretty small. Now, this may shock you. Non-Trinitarian Christian podcasts are not as popular as Joe Rogan, Dave Ramsey, or any of the various true crimes podcasts. Yeah, so we're talking in the tens and hundreds of listeners, not tens of thousands of listeners. That's a lot of work for what may only be dozens of listeners that benefit. If you appreciate someone's podcast, consider taking a short moment and writing them a note. Thank them. Tell them what you appreciate. Maybe request something for a future topic. It's not always easy to know what will be of value to you, but you can simply tell us. I do hear from people often enough, so maybe write one of the other faithful podcasters that you appreciate. It means so much. And the second key way that we podcasters find energy to do this was the increasing downloads. The number of downloads tells us how many people are subscribed to or who follow the podcast. It's not a perfect measure because not everyone who downloads it actually listens through, but it does encourage us to see that our downloads this month are more than they were, say, 4 months ago, not less, even if only slightly more. It means that the existing listeners are still there and a few others have found us. The best way to add a new listener is word of mouth. You simply tell someone that you enjoy and benefit from a podcast, and they will likely give it a try. That's so much less work than us podcasters trying to figure out some marketing or advertising campaign. Your friends trust you 100 times more than they'll trust one of my goofy advertisements. Unless maybe it had monster trucks. Every podcaster will, or should, have some way for you to contact them. For me, it's the email, podcast@UnitarianChristianAlliance.org. Write me and get in the mailbag, or send me an audio message. Thank you to Brandon Duke and Dale Tuggy for the vision and energy to stick ourselves into this interesting media event. And thanks for finding a way that didn't cost us millions of dollars. Oh, this week brought us a new OneOfUs video from the UCA. So the campaign isn't over yet. This new one is about Jesus' trust in God. Check out the whole set of them on the Unitarian Christian Alliance YouTube channel. And thank you to Tim Woodard for joining in. I think we'll have to do this again sometime. If you're coming to the UCA conference this year, I think there's a significant chance you'll get to meet Tim in person. May God bless you in your truth pursuits. I hope this podcast serves you well.
So wait, what's coming after the brrr at the end? Like, what's the postscript?
Oh, the little bing.
Yeah, what comes after that?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Are you talking about the very beginning or the very end of the
At the very end. At the very end, he's always got this little clip.
Not all the time.
And I've always thought, man, if only I could say something so insightful that it went right at the end of the podcast.
Oh, if only, Brandon.
And now you can take me saying, if only I had something clever to say to put at the end of the podcast, and you could put it at the end of the podcast.
That is way too meta. I would never do that, Brandon.